Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We'll be continuing our reading from Vaisnava Ke, What Kind of Devotee Are You? And today we'll be reading from the last verse of the book, verse 19. Ukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripatamam vande Shri Gurum Deen Tarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tats. Shri Daita Dasa Kirtanete Asha Kar Uchay Sware Hari Naam Rava Kirtan Prabhave Smarana Swabhave Se Kale Bhajan Nirjan Sambhava. This Sri Daita Das, His Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the humble servitor of the all-merciful Srimati Radharani, simply desires to be absorbed in the nectar of spreading the glories of Lord Krishna's holy names, my dear mind. Now let us loudly chant the holy names of Krishna so we can continuously remain in the ocean of transcendental nectar. The congregational chanting of the holy names of Krishna awakens the transcendental quality of natural, spontaneous, loving remembrance of Lord Krishna, including the Lord's form, qualities, and pastimes. At that moment, the confidential realization and pure practice of solitary, loving devotional service to their lordships, Sri Radha Krishna, is possible. Purport: engaging in the intense glorification of and meditation on the transcendental glories of Lord Krishna and His holy names is the ultimate purification of mind required to achieve the highest Krishna conscious perfection. The Harinam Sankirtan process of congregational chanting of the holy names of Krishna is complete and perfect. It can uplift a soul from the lowest stages of material conditional life to the highest perfection of confidential loving service to Sri Radha Krishna. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has shown the process of purifying the mind by utilizing higher transcendental intelligence. His Divine Grace has shown us how the impure mind, bewildered by the false ego, can compel a devotee to leave the association of pure devotees to engage in the so-called solitary worship or Nirjan Bhajan. He has also forewarned all devotees how Maya, the illusory energy, allures a devotee who is not sufficiently experienced by tempting the impure mind in various ways with subtle and gross desires, and by implicating the devotees in offenses to pure devotees of the Lord, thereby further entangling the devotee in conditional material life. A devotee can safely cross over the most dangerous obstacles on the path of Krishna consciousness simply by remembering the instructions of these 19 verses. By realizing these practical lessons, the aspiring devotee can understand the real standard of pure devotion to Krishna. Through self-analysis, with the aid of these teachings, a devotee can ascertain the level of personal purity and advancement in Krishna consciousness and make the necessary corrections to safeguard against the hidden pitfalls on the path of Krishna consciousness. The Lord has advised us to purify the mind by cutting off the false ego with the help of the transcendental instruction. You should consider how, by the influence of my illusory energy, these three states of mind, caused by three modes of nature, have been artificially imagined to exist in me. Having definitely ascertained the truth of the soul, you should utilize the sharpened sword of the knowledge acquired by logical reflection and from the instructions of sages and Vedic literatures to completely cut off the false ego, which is the breeding ground of all doubts. All of you should then worship me who am situated within the heart. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, chapter 13, verse number 33. Since Krishna consciousness is beyond the material world, by definition it is beyond the range of mental speculation. Therefore, there is a very real danger of inadvertently introducing unauthorized mental concoctions and mistaking them for real spiritual truths. Learning by simple trial and error is not adequate to produce the desired result. But if the science of Bhakti Yoga is understood from self-realized sages and the Vedic literatures, success is assured. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and his beloved disciple Srila Prabhupada are true sages, bona fide spiritual masters whose instructions are transparent windows to the spiritual world, while on the one hand, blind following can cause mishap, careful comprehension of the instructions of the previous spiritual masters and the Vedic literatures, on the other hand, an astute application of reasoning and logic can protect the aspiring devotee. Logical reflection on the teachings of Krishna is recommended. Mental speculation based on material conceptions and blind sentiments is forbidden on the long journey back to Godhead. But what a fool would travel without a map or guide? Who but a fool would travel without a map or guide? When a devotee has a bona fide spiritual master as his guide and the Vedic literatures as his map, yet still listens to his false ego, that is even more foolish. Certainly, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote this beautiful spiritual poetry out of his causeless compassion so as to save advancing devotees from perhaps unknown yet frequent dangers on the path of Krishna consciousness. Readers would do well to study and review these lessons repeatedly and carefully safeguard their spiritual lives. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught his followers the real spiritual instruction must be taught by example. In this concluding verse, the author explains that his own desire is simply to chant the holy names of Krishna. Indeed, in his practical life, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur demonstrated a dedicated engagement in extensive preaching of the glories of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was the first spiritual master of Bhakti Yoga to send preachers to the Western world to distribute his ancient science of God consciousness. Srila Prabhupada came to the West on the order of Thakur Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and he too practically demonstrated how to live a personal and public life dedicated to glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Loud chanting may be vocal through print in the form of publications or even by electronically aided audio or visual means. Loudness does not only mean decibel level but also signifies the number of persons who hear the transcendental vibrations. In this regard, publication and distribution of the transcendental Vedic literatures is considered a more effective way to reach a greater number of conditioned souls. Preaching the glories of the Lord through the distribution of transcendental literatures was therefore described by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur himself as the Brihat Mridanga, which signifies great chanting. This expansive preaching spirit is simultaneously an expression of the pure devotee's personal ecstasy in love of the Godhead, for glorifying the Lord, as well as his causeless mercy and compassion for the fallen souls suffering repeated birth and death in the material world. In the first verse of this work, the mind was chastised for desiring to chant Hare Krishna in a solitary place, physically running away from the association of devotees to some secluded place for chanting while the world is burning in the fire of materialism and forgetfulness of God. Consciousness is cheating oneself and cheating this fallen souls by depriving them of the opportunity to receive God consciousness. To want to go into seclusion prematurely is artificial and superficial renunciation. Although there may come a stage in a devotee's life where Nirjan Bhajan or worshipping Lord Krishna in a solitary place is permitted. Great spiritual masters would often spend the last days of their lives in solitary holy place in total concentration on the Lord. In this regard, Srila Prabhupada expressed his own desire to practice this level of interior worship when he quotes the first verse of this work in his Srimad Bhagavatam commentary. His lesson also teaches devotees the appropriate time for Nirjan Bhajan. My dear mind, what kind of devotee are you? Simply for cheap adoration, you sit in a solitary place and pretend to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, but this is all cheating. Thus, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur advocated that every devotee, under the guidance of an expert spiritual master, preach the Bhakti cult, Krishna consciousness, all over the world. Only when one is mature can he sit in a solitary place and retire from preaching all over the world. Following this example, the devotees of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness now render service as preachers in various parts of the world. Now they can allow the spiritual master to retire from active preaching work in the last stage of the spiritual master's life. The devotees of the spiritual master should take the preaching activities into their own hands. In this way, the spiritual master can sit down in a solitary place and render Nirjan Bhajan. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, chapter 28, verse 33. In 1977, at the age of 81, Srila Prabhupada suffered illness repeatedly and became in a physically weakened state. He decided to discontinue his travelling around the world and take shelter of Vrindavan Dham, the sacred place of Lord Krishna's pastimes. He listened and chanted Hare Krishna and meditated on the transcendental pastimes of Krishna day and night. Srila Prabhupada, however, always remained in the association of his loving disciples, who assisted him during his final pastime by very softly and sweetly chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra 24 hours a day. Srila Prabhupada said that this was his Nirjan Bhajan and that his sannyasi disciples, including the translator of this work, had to take over the responsibility of travelling and preaching all over the world, as he would not be able to travel anymore. The great spiritual master had taken shelter of Lord Krishna in Vrindavan during the last days of his life. Although Srila Prabhupada was quietly absorbed in meditating on the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna in the association of intimate Vaishnavas, hearing the chanting of the holy names of Krishna is simultaneously continued, translating transcendental literatures written for the welfare of the fallen souls all over the world. Srila Prabhupada explained that writing books on the glories and pastimes of Lord Krishna was his personal ecstasy in love of Godhead. In this way, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada passed the final 5 months of his life in Vrindavan, worshipping Lord Krishna in the mood of separation of Nirjan Bhajan. Lord Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, himself an incarnation of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the mood of devotee of Krishna, spent the final years of his pastimes in this world tasting the nectar of Krishna's pastimes in the association of the few confidential devotees. This is explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thus resided at Jagannath Puri, Nilachal, he was continuously overwhelmed night and day by separation from Krishna. Day and night he tasted the transcendental blissful songs and verses with 2 associates, namely Swarup Damodar and Ramananda Rai. He relished the symptoms of various transcendental emotions such as jubilation, lamentation, anger, humility, anxiety, grief, eagerness, and satisfaction. He would recite his own verses expressing their meanings and emotions and thus enjoy tasting them with these 2 friends. Sometimes the Lord would be absorbed in a particular emotion and would stay awake all night reciting verses and relishing their taste. This is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antalila, chapter 20, verses 3 to 7. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's above mentioned solitary discussions of Lord Krishna's pastimes are also known as Nirjan Bhajan. Therefore, Nirjan Bhajan has its place in devotional service. Although it is not unusual at the end of life many great devotees to prepare for the departure from this world by using the last days to fully concentrate on Krishna, this aspect of devotional service is frequently misunderstood and thus improperly or prematurely adopted. As explained, adopted, hence causing disturbances in the practice and propagation of Krishna consciousness. As explained in detail in previous verses, the Prakrit Sahajiyas, materialistic devotees, try to imitate Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's final pastimes in Jagannath Puri, and they often declare the loud chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, preaching the glories of the Lord and studying the Vedic literatures, even those related to Bhakti Yoga, to be external and unnecessary. They sometimes put an outward display of devotional ecstasy but simultaneously show symptoms of gross material attachment. Srila Prabhupada spent more than a decade in Vrindavan translating Srimad Bhagavatam and other Vedic literatures into English language in preparation for his voyage to the Western world. During this time, amongst many realizations of the truths of Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada was able to observe the actual practices among the so-called advanced devotees who were trying to practice Nirjan Bhajan in Vrindavan. Some of these realizations have been recorded in a poetic work written in Bengali language entitled Vrindavane Bhajan, or Devotional Service to Krishna in Vrindavan. Or Devotional Service to Krishna in Vrindavan. This work clearly illustrates the many discrepancies and the dangers of prematurely retiring from preaching Krishna consciousness for a life of so-called Nirjan Bhajan. The author of this work hopes to later publish this confidential work for devotees The following excerpts from Vrindavan Bhajan illustrates the neophyte nature of prematurely avoiding preaching the Sankirtan movement as instructed by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sometimes those who haven't actually seen a real Vaishnava devotee of the Lord say that devotees are inactive, but actually a Vaishnava, a pure devotee, is always active, being constantly engaged in the service of the Lord. The neophyte Kanishta devotee has no spontaneous enthusiasm or compassion for the conditioned souls. Therefore, he doesn't engage in this service. Rather, the neophyte is inspired by the respect given to renounced devotees living in solitary places, and with a desire to get similar respect and recognition, the neophyte tries to practice Nirjan Bhajan in a solitary place. Why don't they remember how Lord Nityananda was offered all respects by the society of devotees when he gave love of Godhead to the drunkard criminals Jagai and Madai? Even after they beat him, it was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the bearer of the Sudarshan Chakra, who was going to punish Jagai and Madai for their offences. This was how those inimical to Vaishnavas became conquered. This is from Vrindavane Bhajan, verse number or text number 17. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught his devotee to teach others while personally practicing the teaching oneself. Neglecting this instruction and artificially retiring to some separate solitary place is the action of a person who is actually cheating himself. At the same time, Mahaprabhu was present. There was only one Jagai and Madhai, but now the world is filled with Jagais and Madhais. All devotees should follow in the footsteps of Lord Nityananda, but instead, even the so-called family descendants of Lord Nityananda Vamsha are simply busy increasing their number of cheap followers. They eat well and live in luxury without any anxiety or care. But it is not proper for a Vaishnav to be without compassion for the fallen souls. If anyone has any doubts in this regard, simply read the Madhurya Kadambini by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and his Siddhanta, or the conclusions in this regard. Ahatuki Bhakti, this is from Vrindavan Bhajan, verse or text 18. Ahatuki Bhakti is self-manifested. It is Nityasiddha or an eternal spiritual qualified person present in the heart that remains hidden, still awakened. A Madhyam Adhikari devotee situated on the more advanced platform of devotional service has mercy upon non-devotees and awakens their natural devotion to the Lord. This compassionate nature of the pure devotee makes even the Lord attracted to his devotees. Being attracted by the wonderful qualities of his pure devotees, the Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, allows himself to be controlled by their love. Real Vaishnavas can awaken the spiritually sleeping world, and out of this causeless mercy convert sinful persons into devotees. This is devotees of the Lord. This is from Vrindavane Bhajan, text or verse number 19. So we'll continue our reading next time from verse 19. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai.